Alrighty, I think that'll do. It's 5 past now, so we'll crack on. Right, hello, welcome to workshop number 5, Clicking Mint, a deep dive. It's the first one I've hosted, so previous ones have been hosted by Paul and by Abby. It's the first time you get to see me doing something like this, so pretty excited for it. I hope you will find something useful here. The purpose of this this whole thing is to basically give you guys a bit more of an understanding as to what actually happens under the hood once you click on that mint button, or transfer, sending ETH somewhere, or claim if you're claiming an ERC20 or whatever. Just having kind of like a bit of a dig into kind of what happens under the hood there. And the benefits of kind of understanding that is you kind of know more about what you're actually kind of doing. You're not kind of blindly just clicking buttons. You know what kind of terms you're accepting almost. You know what to expect, and with that knowledge, you know, you can be more competitive in mints. You can understand how to kind of reduce your gas costs slightly, and also quite crucially is it gives you one big tool that you need to prevent yourself from being scammed, you know, from kind of identifying dodgy transactions and whatnot. So there's a lot of practicalities to actually understanding these things. Now, I know that there's going to be a variety of people that are going to be kind of here on this session or watching later on our YouTube channel. We're going to have tech-heavy people, we're going to have not tech-heavy people at all, we're going to have kind of block-native people and people that are quite new to Web3. So it's going to be difficult to kind of talk about all of this kind of stuff with the right language for everybody. So I'm going to try and do my best to kind of keep the language and the terminology as basic as possible and understand, kind of explain things kind of as and when they come up. They're not kind of immediately obvious. So yeah, we'll try and do my best. The way I'll do this is we'll kind of go through kind of each section, each part, and then if there are any questions, use the Zoom chat to kind of just ask them there. And you know, when we take breaks between those sections, I'll try to answer anything that I can. Alrighty, so you've clicked that big mint button. So Metamask pops open on your browser and you're greeted with a bunch of information, which we'll get to shortly. You don't care, you just click mint, you want that NFT, right? So mint, confirm, done. Those are the steps you go through. So yeah, we're going to go through what have you actually blindly kind of stepped through there. What's all the jargon? So what's Metamask actually trying to tell you, and what's going on the Ethereum blockchain, and why should you care? So we're going to start this with Metamask. Now, obviously, I know a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, I think the vast majority of you will use Metamask. Some people will use another wallet. It's largely the same between all of them. I'm just going to use Metamask as it's the most popular, and like I said, it should be similar across all wallets as well. So where we're going to do this is this slide deck. It's mainly going to be for kind of anchoring purposes, just going to anchor the conversation. But we're actually going to do some real transactions kind of as we go and kind of dig into those. But we'll start with MetaMask, and we'll start with kind of seeing those first few things that pop up. So you've clicked on that mint button and the MetaMask pops up. What's it showing you? Okay, so that's this first picture here, and you get this details tab come up, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's that screen that you have a look at before you click this big confirm button, right? And all it's doing is that's giving you an overview of your estimated gas fee, so what your gas is going to likely cost. Not accurate. This isn't an exact quote that you're going to be paying. This is just your estimated fee, and we'll come back into that. And the total includes kind of any kind of price in Ether that you're paying as well. It could be tokens even. So this could say like you're paying, if Snatch was back on chain, 1,000 sats as well, for example. Data here, this gives you a bit more of an overview as to what you're actually kind of transacting. So the function that you're interacting with here takes in token IDs in this example. I'm using ETHaliens as an example, and this, I believe, is a claim function that we're looking at. So you'll see that these are the tokens that I'm claiming for in this particular transaction. Now, if you were minting, you might have amounts here, and you might have 5 as a parameter, it's called. And that means that you're minting 5 of those things. Hex, won't go into this at all. You'll see the tab there, and you'll see this exact same view. Hex is just a way of kind of displaying information efficiently for a computer to understand. we don't need to care about that whatsoever. Okay, so we're going to come off the slideshow for a second, and we're actually going to have a look in person at some of these and dig into them. So I'm going to use a couple example transactions today. When I was kind of preparing for this this workshop, I wanted to have a mint function, like an actual live example of that, and I wanted to have another kind of function, like a claim kind of function, a claim ERC20 function. So for the mint functions, we're using a project here that I'm part of, which I know a few people in the TopDog community are part of as well. It's the Superlative Secret Society. And the reason I've chosen this is just there's an ability for me to mint my artifact, it's called, and that basically provides me with a companion drop. So I have that already available to me. I don't have to kind of go out and spend money on a rubbish project somewhere. I can actually kind of do it with this one here. So it's going to load things up and get the transaction going. Okay, right. So this button here, mint, and it's going to pop up my Metamask. So I'll bring that front and center. I'll try and make that as big as I can for you all to see. Okay. So what we actually seeing here? Well, first of all, right at the top here, we're seeing the accounts that we are kind of interacting with. So first of all, you're going to have your account here. So it's going to be your MetaMask with your kind of address. And the second one on the right side of the arrow here, this is the contract that you're going to be interacting with. So we're interacting here with the Superlative Mint contract, and we'll come to that again in a second. We can see here that my estimated gas fee for this transaction, $8.51, or this amount in Ether. And obviously I'm not spending anything here as well. Data-wise, you might see this from time to time. So whereas my original screenshot showed some data here, we can see here from the error message that transaction insights aren't actually supported for this particular contract. And this is to do with the kind of owners of that contract and deployers of that contract not kind of verifying it fully. So yeah, sometimes you'll see this. It can be a little bit annoying for those that want to kind of dig under the hood, but that's fine. Once we actually kind of transact, we can see all that detail anyway. So while we're here, let's have a look at the actual gas that we're going to be paying. Right. So if we click on edit, we get a bit more kind of detail as to what we're actually doing here. So by default, MetaMask gives you three options: low, medium, high. There's not much difference in those in terms of what you would pay. All this here is changing is something called the max priority fee that you're going to be paying for your transaction. It doesn't change anything apart from that, I believe. And we can kind of see more about that in the advanced options, and we'll also go more into definition as to what max priority fee actually means, because it's not immediately obvious. So here we're getting a breakdown of what our gas cost is made up of, right? So it's made up of three elements. It's made up of your gas limit, it's made up of your max priority fee, and let's just see if that is right. Okay, yeah, there we go. So your max priority fee is what kind of changes how much this kind of estimation is, and you have your max fee, right? So gas is calculated by basically multiplying your gas limit by your max fee, okay? And then you add onto that your max priority fee times your gas limit fee, okay? So the gas limit here, this isn't in Ether or Gwei or Wei or anything. These are just kind of arbitrary units that the transaction is going to basically eat through, okay? So think of them like kind of credits or whatever that you're going to eat through to actually process your transaction. And it kind of it's the Ethereum like processing power that you're borrowing. You're using this much of that processing power for your transaction, or up to that much kind of processing power. Oftentimes, and we'll come to see that as well, contracts kind of overestimate the amount of gas they will be using. So whereas here it's showing almost 120,000 in the gas limit, we could very likely only use 80,000 units. And what that means is, this estimation here will actually kind of come in higher than what we actually do pay in the end. So we'd likely only pay like $4 or something for this whole transaction. Max priority fee. So this is quite an important one. This is actually what goes directly to the kind of the verifiers of your transaction. And this is what basically can quite often put your transaction ahead of, say, someone else's. So if we're in a competitive mint scenario, for example, and you wanted to up your gas to, let's say, 1,500, okay, your max fee that you're willing to pay. If the priority fee stayed as 1.5, you're very likely not going to get that through still, because everyone else that's trying to be competitive with their mint will be increasing this quite significantly as well, to try and kind of get ahead of all those others that you know that they're kind of competing against. So that won't actually kind of do much by itself, just increasing this max fee here. You also need to increase your max priority fee, what you're actually willing to pay to the miners. And this is a flat fee as well, so this won't change. So once, you know, if I say I'm going to pay 100 max fee, right, max priority fee, that is going to go to a miner. You know, there's no like kind of max or whatever about it. For example, with the max fee, this very well might not actually come in at 1,500. This might be only 700 or 800 that I end up kind of paying at that point. I will come back to how kind of gas works in a bit more detail. There is, I'll quickly kind of go to the last slide. There is some great resources that I recommend on this, particularly Gas Wars, a good Twitter thread here by the Digital V, and gas fee calculations, so kind of how gas actually is calculated. So yeah, we'll come back to those very briefly at the end, but they're very good resources for you all to kind of have to hand. Particularly from a practical sense, is the Gas Wars one if you do intend on getting involved in anything competitive. Okay, right. So we're actually going to go ahead with this transaction now. So I'm just going to kind of come out of this. I'm going to show you kind of my method, I suppose, of kind of doing these things, because nowadays I very rarely click straight through and confirm. I do usually kind of jiggle with the gas settings. Just to kind of, you know, basically squeeze out a few extra savings here and there. Okay, so one big tool that people will have or people use is kind of a gas estimator. There's lots of different ones on the market. My personal favorite is Block Native, and this gives me a good overview of what the most likely settings will be to kind of get through on the next block. So right here we can see that if I have a priority fee of 2.53 and a max fee of 48, I'm very likely to get through within the next block. And you see it changes kind of every few seconds, but based on what's going on in the network. Base fee, that's the minimum kind of fee that you would pay for this. Right, so let's go ahead and we're going to plug in those settings that I'm kind of viewing on here as well. So gas limit, we went over it, don't touch it though. You know, if you this is a good point actually. If you were to decrease your gas limit here, thinking that you're going to get a better deal on the gas that you're paying, that's not the case. Okay, it's the amount used by the contract is going to be the same, and if you actually hit that limit, your transaction stops at that moment. Okay, so it's processed up to that moment and then it stops, it's reverted, and you lose the gas up to that point without actually having got your or completed the transaction. So, you know, got your mint or completed your transfer or whatever. So yeah, never touch that. The max priority fee and the max fee though, you can kind of play around with those. So we're going to plug in I'm going to plug in 43. Now, keep an eye on the 43 that I do here, because we're going to actually dig into this transaction on Etherscan in a little bit. Just coming through at $6.98 as an estimation. And also a bit of fun here, right? We're going to actually see what I do get minted. It's always the fun, isn't it? Oh, very very dramatic. Right, okay. So drum roll, please. Quite a cool one. Alrighty. I like these guys. I think I actually went through 2. I didn't think I clicked on 2, but there you go. I minted 2, in fact, in the end. And what would have been good actually. So I would have been able to see that had the data tab been working properly in Metamask. I would have actually seen that I was about to sign the transaction for 2 minutes rather than the one that I just that I kind of intended to do there. So there you go. It's kind of a good kind of show at the practicalities of actually being able to kind of see that information. Is why I would also advise any kind of developers or deployers to make sure that you are kind of verifying the contract in the correct way, so that you can, so that people that want to see this information can kind of see that as they go through. Alrighty, yeah. So nice little couple of repasses there that I've just minted. Let's dig into the actual transaction and what's going on there. In fact, before I do that though, I will just kind of briefly come back to the chat here and ask if there's any questions so far. How's everyone doing? Okay, so Amina's asked, what happens if I increase the gas limit? Good question. Usually nothing. Like I said, most contracts, they will kind of estimate and overestimate the amount of units needed to process a transaction. And you only use what you use. So if, say, limit that MetaMask advises you is 100,000 and you only use 80,000, if you increases your max kind of gas limit to 150, so it's 200,000, you're still only going to use that 80,000. So it doesn't actually change kind of how much gas you end up paying. All it does is change the maximum you're willing for that transaction to spend, to kind of use up. By and large, it doesn't really matter if you increase that limit at all. The only kind of potential downside is if the contract isn't really kind of written kind of very efficiently or very well at all, and you do increase that and it does eat through all of those units, then you are spending a lot more on gas. But for 99% of cases, that won't matter at all really. Okay, right, cool. So we're gonna have a look on Etherscan now, and we're gonna have a quick look at that transaction in a bit more detail. So this slide deck here, I'm going to make it available to everyone afterwards. It doesn't explain kind of much what we're going through here. Like I said, it's just an anchor point to the whole kind of conversation. Okay, so we're going to have a look through the Etherscan transaction now. And this is what we've just done. This is what we just minted right here. So we'll go through each of these kind of in part and kind of talk briefly about kind of the terminology here and what's kind of being shown to us. So transaction hash, this is a unique identifier for the transaction. No other transaction will have this hash across the entire network. It's completely unique to this transaction. And it's just, yeah, it's just a way of kind of showing uniqueness to this, so that you know if you refer to this string of letters and numbers, you are referring to this transaction. It's globally unique. Status, so this is, as it implies, the status of the transaction here being successful. You might also see processing, if it hasn't fully processed yet, it's just kind of in the queue to be transacted, or failed, reverted, etc. if the transaction's failed. Block, so blockchain works, as kind of name suggests, in blocks. Each block is a set of transactions. So this transaction was part of the many hundreds in this block number here. You don't need to know much of that to kind of have a practical kind of advantage, I suppose, in your transactions. But it's kind of good to know that that's kind of how it works. There's a limit to the number of transactions any blockchain can process. Ethereum's no exception to that, and it's also kind of why we have gas in the first place, because we can only have so many transactions in a block. You need some kind of way of kind of prioritizing those, and basically, gas is basically kind of the highest bidder. Essentially, kind of gets put into the next block. By and large, the highest processor. There are exceptions to the rule. That people running their own node can actually kind of determine the order of transactions, or particularly transactions that they do verify. timestamp, very obvious one, just kind of when the transaction occurred, and transaction action here. So these are kind of all the actions that the transaction that you've just kind of executed goes through. So we minted 2 repuses here, the companion drop to the superlative secret society. And what happened with this one is I had 2 what are called artifacts that I got for free for owning the base asset, these superlatives, and these were burnt with this transaction. So in return for burning those 2, I then minted these 2 tokens. Okay, so we have quite a nice kind of English explanation there of kind of what has taken place in the transaction. From and to, again, very kind of basic ones, and we saw these in the Metamask kind of pop up as well. You know, we're going from my account here, it's showing my ENS address in this particular one, and the contract that I interacted with, and we'll go into the contract very shortly as well. Okay, so tokens transferred. This is a bit of duplication of information in this particular example, but sometimes it's not going to be, you know, particular duplication. This is just basically saying kind of, you know, what has happened to the tokens that were involved in this transaction. You know, in this case, it's the ERC 721s that I've minted. So they have kind of been transferred over to me. So you can see here they're going from the null address, which is basically, you know, kind of from the void almost. They're being minted now, and they're coming to my address here. You know, they're being minted to my account. That's what you can see in this transaction. And then we also have the burn here as well. So we're sending from my address to the null address, which is the burn address too. Value. So this is how much ether you've spent in that transaction, not gas, just how much you have actually spent. Transaction fee, that's your gas. And you can see here that I think before it was showing us as a $7 estimation. Can't quite remember that. But it's come in at $6.28 in this case. And the gas price, this is actually the fee that we spent in the end. So we put in, I think, 40 max fee, but we only actually kind of had to pay 21 gas per unit in the end. Okay, right. So, oh wow, this is a margin that's quite scary actually. Usually you'll see, actually first of all, I'll explain here what we're seeing. So this is the gas limit that we sent through with the transaction. It's what was automatically estimated by the contract. Okay, so 119,002 units. We were saying we were happy to spend that amount of units for the transaction. Okay, however, we only used 112,000, which is 95%, almost 95% utilization of that limit. Quite often we'll see that at 75%, 80%. It's quite scary to see it coming in so close. Maybe that's some optimizations that I'm not kind of fully aware of, that, you know, they're so confident they're not coming in, they're not going to go in over that. Oh, just got a message here to zoom in. It's quite hard to read, so hopefully that's a little bit better for you all. Cool. So yeah, maybe there's some optimizations I don't know about there, but that's quite scary, because if it did hit that 119,000 limit, we would have paid all the gas, all $6 of it, and not received anything in return. We wouldn't have got our mint here. Okay, so the gas fees here, this is the breakdown of the gas that was actually kind of spent in the transaction as well. So the base fee at the time of the transaction was 19 Wei. Okay, we put in a max of 43. Now we don't pay the max, we pay what the base fee was at the time. Okay, if the base spiked in the meantime between me clicking mint, you know, the confirm button on Metamasks, and the transaction actually going through, we would have paid kind of more towards this max level, but you only pay the base in that block. Okay, so this is what we're comfortable paying, and this is what we actually paid. Now, there's quite a good document, which again is linked in the sheet that I'm going to be showing you all, which kind of goes into detail as to kind of why you should increase your max gas limit. I think I've got that one right. To a certain degree, and it's basically so you stay competitive over a certain number of blocks into the future, because the base fee can only rise a certain percentage each block, and it kind of stops these ridiculous instant spikes where your transaction will no longer be competitive at all. I think off the top of my head, it's like 12.5%. It can go up each block. I might be wrong there, though. But this guide here on Block Native, which is linked in the PowerPoint that we've got, that goes into great detail, and it's a fantastic read. I would definitely recommend that to anyone interested in digging a little further. Okay, right. So here, the burn and transaction savings fees. We don't really need to worry about this at all. This is just kind of how much of the ether is burnt. So actually kind of not in the ecosystem at all anymore. And that was what was implemented with EIP 1559, I believe it was, a few months back. And this is what kind of is making ether a kind of semi-deflationary asset nowadays as well. I'm not actually too sure if it is deflationary, because mining does produce new ether, so it's kind of balancing against that. But it's it's definitely kind of good for the ecosystem overall to be burning this stuff here. Now this is where we kind of start to see a bit more of the particulars around the transaction. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing the kind of the data that we're sending across to the contract. And we're seeing the kind of interpretation here, or basically we're seeing what the blockchain wants to see. So these random zeros, ones, twos, whatever, which make no sense to us. But if we decode the input data here, we can start to see a bit more kind of human readable information as to what we're doing. So we can see here that we had a parameter in the mint called amount. That was of type, and I'll come back to kind of this in a little bit, of uint256. Understanding this will understand what you need to do, or we need to put into a contract interact bit directly, which we'll come over to soon, and I'll make sure it's explained in nice kind of plain English. And the data, this is actually what was inputted into kind of the data field, essentially, and that's 2. So I actually only intended to mint 1, as you guys saw, but I must have accidentally misclicked or whatever and hit 2 before we kind of went ahead with it. If I had seen this on the Metamask data tab, then I could have, revised that and changed that and kind of corrected myself before. Okay, so a quick look into types. Those among us that are developers or kind of tech savvy might know what these are, straight away. But those of you that aren't, this might seem a little bit like, what the hell is a uint256? Okay, so you don't need to know too much more than that is a number. Okay, uint stands for an unsigned integer, and 256 is basically the number of kind of bytes that the number can take up. Okay, so you can have uint16, uint32, uint64. With uint16, for example, you can only store like a much smaller number than you can uint256. You don't need to worry about much of that at all. All you need to know is it's a number, an integer. That's all you need to worry about with that one there. And what we'll do shortly is we'll actually kind of look at how you would input this data on Etherscan directly, so you can mint directly, which is a huge practical advantage to understanding kind of what happens under the hood. Is that you can forego, these websites that are prone to kind of crashing or breaking, especially under heavy load, and actually kind of go straight to Etherscan and mint from there. Not possible all the time, but most of the time you'll find that you won't be able to do that. Okay, so we've gone through this page here, which is our transaction details. I'm just going to come back to the chat quickly again and ask if there's any questions on this one so far. I also have a second of beer on. Paul's asked, how much am I regretting minting 2 Rebus tokens? Not at all, not at all. I like the Rebuses. I like the art, as their tagline goes. We like the art. And I've got 10 other SSS, superlative secret societies, waiting to get their artifacts minted. So I shouldn't be short of artifacts at all. Okay, right. I think we'll carry on then to the next section. We're sticking with Etherscan for now, but we're going to be going through the contract page of Etherscan and understanding a bit of that. And this is, I suppose, what a lot of you guys are here for. This is kind of understanding, how we kind of interact, quote unquote, directly with a contract. Etherscan is, at the end of the day, still just an interface to interact with the blockchain. It's not actually direct, but it's a lot more kind of direct. It has just one less layer, I suppose, than going kind of through a website. So let's do that now then. Let's have a look at the transaction. Let's stick with the, the theme we're going with here. Let's actually have a look at the contract that we interacted with to dig into this a bit more. So we're on the contract page here. We'll come to the actual kind of code in the contract and what you can do in a second. First of all, this is a nice screen to know about as well here. This is the contract transaction log, essentially. And you can see the history of interactions with the contract. So here we can see our mint, we can see a lot of other mints, we can see set approval for all. And this is a transaction I'm sure you're all familiar with seeing your MetaMask pop up with. And you just, again, you click confirm, confirm, confirm. You're spending a bit of gas to, set your approval. But what this means is you're allowing something to, when I say something like another contract, to use your tokens, to spend your tokens. So quite often you'll be, say, setting approval for OpenSea to spend your top dog token to actually, be able to sell it via their contract. So a good practical application of this page is seeing the backlog of pending transactions. How many transactions are waiting to go through. You can see, if it's about if a mint is about to sell out. You can then, if you wanted to check the ones that have minted in a very competitive mint, you can go into their transaction hash and you can actually have a look at their gas settings and copy their gas settings with the kind of, hope that you're then, kind of going to be as competitive as people that are actually getting their mint. And so you can plug those into MetaMask when you do actually go to mint yourself. So it's useful to have in those kind of competitive scenarios, and it lets you kind of dig into various bits and pieces quite nicely. Okay, so we're going to go into the contract part of it now. Now, like I said, I know we're going to have quite a wide audience here in terms of their kind of background and stuff like that. But not all of us here are developers, so I don't expect you to be able to kind of, come in and read this contract and just know exactly what's going on, nor do I expect you to go through that after just a short workshop. But I'll quickly go over kind of what you can see here on the screen, right? So we have this contract tab here, and we have 3 tabs within that. We have the code, we have read contract, and we have write contract, okay? So code is where you can see the contract that's been deployed to the blockchain. So in this case, we're looking at Superlative's own contract that I've just interacted with. We hit a mint function. So let's see if we can find that. So this is the function, and this is the logic that our mint just went through to kind of, actually kind of burn my tokens and send me the new ones, okay? So this will be different for every contract. This is what their development team wrote, and it is good to have a slight understanding of kind of what you're interacting with and the language and stuff like that, but it's by no means necessary. And that's why you have kind of other people in the sphere that we're in that kind of do understand this stuff and can kind of look at these things and audit them, because it's all open source and viewable and stuff like that, and kind of tell you if there's anything dodgy going on. But yeah, for the most part, the languages that we use nowadays in development, Solidity, the Ethereum language being one of them, is they're largely human readable. You don't have to know too much intricacies to kind of get basic understanding of what's going on, like a few hours of research, and you should be able to kind of be able to read a contract with some level of confidence. More time than we have right now, but yeah. So, you know, me, myself, and other developers, we might kind of dig into a contract in a bit more detail before we kind of mint. We can kind of see what's kind of going on. Is there anything that looks a bit dodgy? You know, is this a scam? Basically, here it's not. Obviously, a very established project, great project in my eyes. And yeah, we just kind of basically each step of this, our mint goes through. But I won't spend too long on it. The parts that anyone can really do after just, you know, a short amount of kind of research time, or kind of you know, willing to spend a bit of time kind of getting used to. Anyone can interact with it by reading and writing the functions that are made available to the contract themselves, right? So right here, read contract, you don't need to sign in with your wallet, because they're basically, you're just viewing data in that contract itself. And it's only letting you view contract that the writers of the contract are letting you view, but that's fine for the most part. So we're in an ERC 721, an NFT contract right now, and there's lots of functions in here that are standard across all ERC 721 contracts. So for example, token URI is a good one to have a quick look at on the view side of things, the read contract side of things. If we put in a token ID here, we get back the metadata URL. So if we go to this metadata, this is the actual metadata that OpenSea is going to be reading as well. So OpenSea will read the contract, they'll read this token URI, and they'll go, right, here's the metadata for the token Repus #1. Okay, that's what we're going to grab, that's what we're going to get, and that's how we're going to populate our website, OpenSea. So we know that the background is wavy stone, the body is forgetful. And that's kind of a very standard function across all NFT contracts. I think every contract that defines, it's called ERC 721, will have that in it. We've got other ones here which don't require inputs, like total supply. So how many are actually existing, how many tokens are existing, sale is active, true. So yeah, got one to write contract. So this is where we're going to actually interact, change the state essentially of the contract, of the blockchain, if we kind of do anything in here. So I've just connected with my wallet, okay, and this is why I didn't want to mint two, because I was then going to mint one through here, but it doesn't matter. When we looked at our transaction detail, we had an amount field, and it had 2 in the amount here, okay. We could have just written that in here, and we could have just written here, and the exact same stuff, the exact same pop-up would have occurred on Metamask side, okay. So we would have been able to, if the ability here was available, to see that our mint amount was 2, we were able to see our gas, etc., change all that, blah, 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 and then click confirm. Now, it's quite good actually that this has come up, because this is basically a preview as to whether the transaction will be successful or not. So I don't have to artifact in my wallet anymore. I can't now burn those to mint them, okay? So we get this message on Metamask, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen every now and then. Quite often you'll see this if a mint isn't live yet, but you've clicked that mint button already. And it's basically saying this transaction is expected to fail. So what's happened is kind of off-chain, the transaction actually has already kind of processed, in a sense. It's gone through the whole contract, and it's processed all the kind of code and all the interactions. It said, right, yep, this will actually transact, this will kind of go through, or in this case, it won't go through. And then it reports back to Metamask to say, yeah, okay, this is successful, it can be rejected, blah, blah, blah. So we're not kind of forced here to kind of like, you know, just send in our transaction without knowledge of whether it's going to be successful or not. It will kind of go, you know, it will tell us it's not going to work this time around because the you know, sale isn't live, or because you don't have the right tokens or whatever like that, and it saves us the gas. We get an absurd gas estimation here. Again, that's the thing, just a preventative measure. Basically, just, you know, the contract's just saying don't do this in a sense. So yeah, so we can actually kind of mint directly through contracts this way, and it's nowhere near as intimidating as a lot of people kind of would think. You know, we just plug in the parameters, you know, these fields here that the contract kind of asks for, and we just click right. You know, this is your mint button that you have on the website. You may have, you know, a few more fields in here. Just trying to think off the top of my head what you might have. Can't think now. Yeah, there'll be other fields that you might kind of come across. But again, you should value in ETH. There you go. Paul's tried a good one there. You know, how much you're paying for those mints, which, you know, it's quite easy to calculate kind of in your head, or, you know, if you're doing big transactions, get a calculator open or whatever. You know, it's the number you're, you know, the quantity that you're purchasing multiplied by the, you know, kind of price per mint. So let's say they're both 0.08. We are plugging 0.16 in Ether there. And yeah, that's what you would do. And again, if you get it wrong, you know, if you plug in the wrong amount, Metamask is going to tell you about that anyway. It's going to say, like, you know, this transaction is expected to fail because you haven't provided enough Ether there. So if you do it wrong, you have, you know, that safety net essentially. So you can be confident that kind of what you are actually clicking through and what you actually are doing is going to be successful once you kind of do click confirm on MetaMask. So yeah, it's a lot easier than most people would think. And yeah, I definitely do kind of recommend, you know, doing this, or, you know, practicing this on kind of upcoming mints that you're getting involved in, because it is a great option, especially when a website is getting overloaded, you know, by many thousands of people trying to kind of get in there. It's great to kind of have this kind of understanding of how to do it all. Right, so I did want to go through more than just a mint transaction, because there are some other kind of things going on under the hood that are good to understand from a practical sense. So I'm going to close these out. These are all the Repus stuff. And we're going to come to another project that I'm in soon, Ethalian, which has an ERC20 token that you can claim. So ERC20 is a good one to kind of understand as well. Before we move on to that, I will go back to the chat again and ask any more questions. Okay. Nothing through. Let's quickly check on Discord, see if anyone else has questions there. Nope. Okay, cool. Okay, right. Now we're going to go on to claiming an ERC20 now. Now, again, largely it's, you know, we're going through the same process as a mint. We're just going to see some different things, essentially, with kind of how we're kind of, you know, interacting, different parameters, different whatevers. So I chose this one in particular because we can actually see the data tab on this one in a live example. So in this case, we are claiming ERC20 tokens that are accumulating against an NFT, you know, one of the tokens that I own. So this claim function is taking in the token IDs of the ones of the tokens that I own that I'll be claiming for. So these are all the Ethalian tokens that I own, and these are being sent across in the transaction that I confirm. Again, we can see the gas fee and stuff that doesn't change at all, and hex we're not worried about. So yeah, this is just a good kind of good overview as to what the data kind of tab shows. And yeah, this can get really complex when you have multiple parameters in there, but yeah, this case is quite a simple one. Now, one cool thing that we can do here that we wouldn't be able to do if we didn't know how to kind of interact with Etherscan directly is I've clicked this claim button and it's sent all of my tokens through to here, right? Maybe I don't want to claim everything. Maybe I want to leave some star, the ERC20 token, against some of my other assets. You know, maybe I think that makes them more attractive to be sold or traded. Yeah, maybe I just don't want to claim absolutely everything. And I can do that with the knowledge that we now have, you know, of interacting directly with Etherscan. So we'll come to that in a second. I'm not going to actually go through with that transaction, but I do have one I done a couple weeks ago, I think it was, or 7 days ago. I do have the transaction details for one here that I did actually do for Star, for ETH Aliens, where again, you know, got transaction hash, status, block, timestamp, blah, 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 blah. Interacted with this contract here, which will come to in a second, tokens transferred. So whereas before we were showing that we transferred 2 repuses into my wallet and 2 artifacts out from my wallet to the burn address, from here we're minting ERC20 tokens. So we're receiving these tokens from the null address, minting, and receiving them to my wallet. Okay, so the tokens transferred, that will just show whatever tokens, ERC20, ERC721, 1155, whatever, whatever is kind of, you know, changed hands, essentially, you'll see that there. Value, no value, transaction fee, total gas that we paid, and we'll see the gas details as well. So again, we come down here, we see our input data, doesn't make any sense to us whatsoever in this form. We click on the code and we can see the parameters that went into this transaction. Good one here is we can see a second parameter, owner, address, and we can see my address here as well. So these are all the token IDs that that I kind of claimed for. I did just do it through the website in that case. I took everything. I didn't want to, you know, do anything special, like just mint a few. And the type here in this case is uint 256 2 square brackets. What the hell are those 2 square brackets? So these 2 square brackets at the end of any type. So if you see string here, which is basically a word, or uint, a number, or anything else, and you see 2 brackets afterwards, it means basically a list of. So a list of token IDs, 6263, 6904, 6265, etc. You can just put 1 in there, and that's a list of 1. But it means you can put a list of numbers in there. And when we actually go to the contract and write to the contract, we'll be separating those by commas. You'll see that in a second. Okay. So we're at the contract here. Again, this is a new contract. This is their own ERC20 implementation. We don't worry about that. We have a few different functions here. Total supply, for example. Ooh, big number, big number. And right, so we are connected on the right page and claim rewards, okay? So I'm going to do this wrong the first time just to show you that you can, it's difficult to mess up. So I'm just going to put something random in there, token 1. Okay, I need to put something right in there. Let's do that. I will put my address in there then, but token IDs, I don't own the token ID 1, okay? So Metamask should say, there we go, this transaction is expected to fail. So we have that safety net. You can't mess this up unless you go, I will try anyway, confirm. Don't do that, okay? Listen to what it's telling you. There are very few circumstances where you can maybe do that. I would never recommend it though. That's a very kind of advanced use. So don't do that at all, okay? We'll reject that. But what we can do here is, rather than, in this case, claim for every single token in my wallet, we can now take just a few. So let's take 6263. $6904 and 6265. Okay. And right. So again, I'm not going to go through this because I have actually claimed these recently. And you'll see that Metamask is telling me that, you know, there's no problem with this. It's expected to work. This should go through fine. So if we did now proceed with this transaction, we have basically unlocked functionality that wasn't available to us before. You know, we've unlocked the functionality to be able to pick and choose what tokens we want to claim our ERC20 for. Whereas if we went through the website, there's no such option. I just don't think there is, but anyway, yeah, this goes further than Ethereum, and I wouldn't say this is any fault on the Ethereum part. This is just how they kind of want to provide a nice clean UI to their users. Throwing too much detail is definitely not a good idea in terms of kind of user experience. But kind of knowing these kind of backdoors and these kind of cool little kind of ways of the blockchain, you can unlock functionality that isn't necessarily available straight away for other people. And it's a good kind of point as to why understanding kind of how this kind of all works is beneficial to you as a blockchain user. Cool. Okay, so that is Etherscan interactions. Any questions so far on that one? Okay, I don't think there's any questions on this so far. Cool, okay, we'll move on. Not too much more to go over now. There's one more Etherscan page, which I think is, oh no, sorry, we did go over that one. It's just in the wrong order in my in my slide pack here. So yeah, I do think that's actually kind of all I have planned for the workshop. Like I said, there are some really good kind of further reading documents that can kind of level up your understanding even further. Blockchain Basics from Metamask, I think, is a really good one, and this goes into detail on just the blockchain, essentially, kind of why does it even exist, kind of how does it work at a top level. It's not kind of going down a particular kind of a niche like NFTs or ERC20s. It stays quite general and explains kind of blockchain as a concept. It's a very good kind of one to kind of have a base understanding. Blockchain Glossary by Consensus, sorry, is another very good kind of resource to kind of keep in your back pocket. If there's ever terminology that you're not kind of sure of or you kind of don't understand, this is a great place to kind of quickly reference what that is. So if you're not from a programming background and you hear API shout about, you can quickly come here and kind of find out what someone's talking about or what altcoin is, that kind of stuff. It's a great resource to kind of get on there. Gas fee calculations, touched on this earlier. I definitely recommend this one if you do plan on getting involved in competitive mints where gas might hike. Actually kind of understanding gas puts you at a significant advantage compared to all the other people that you're competing against, who are just kind of blindly setting their parameters to whatever number they can just think of in their head. Definitely a good one. A good synopsis of kind of the technical detail there is this Twitter thread from the Digital V. I recommend giving this a read. And it's basically just a thread on kind of how to participate in gas wars. A very good one there. It's also been updated since the EIP 1559 update, where we started to get the max priority fees and things like that coming through. Great resource to have there. And another one here, basically kind of going into a bit detail about how to mint for a contract like we've kind of done here on this workshop today. Cool, okay. So I hope at least someone has found this useful. It's good to kind of see so many people kind of interested in leveling up their understanding and knowing kind of what goes on under the hood when you do click these buttons. Being able to kind of read a contract as well is a great great skill, and I'll definitely recommend if you have a few hours free on a weekend or an evening to kind of just start to kind of maybe watch some YouTube videos or read some kind of basic information about kind of solidity and contracts and how to kind of read those. you know, it's a lot easier to read code than it is to write it, in my opinion. And kind of knowing that will definitely help kind of level you up further from where this workshop has taken you. But yeah, I hope that, you know, with what we have covered here in the workshop, it does provide you some kind of advantage to your blockchain life, you know, even if it's just kind of saving you a little bit on gas because you understand how it works a bit more, or being able to, you know, kind of do some quirky kind of contract interactions directly through Etherscan. Yeah, I hope you will find it useful. And if there are any more questions outside of this session, please just you know, give me a shout in Discord, the rest of the team, whatever, you know, give any one of us a shout, and we'll be happy to help. Cool. All right then, guys. It's been great having you, great hosting you, and we'll see you in the next workshop.